The grease from the fryer clung to my skin like a second layer I could never wash off. 11:43 at night, and the fluorescent lights in Rosie's Roadhouse diner buzzed overhead like angry hornets, casting everything in a sickly yellow glow. I'd been on my feet for 13 hours straight, my lower back screaming, my hands raw from scalding dishwater and the bite of industrial cleaner. But I needed this job. Needed the tips that barely covered my rent in that roach-infested studio above the pawn shop. Needed the free meals that kept me from starving. Needed the anonymity of being just another invisible girl wiping down counters in a forgotten corner of the city. I twisted my dark hair into a messy knot, securing it with the same rubber band I'd been using for a week, and reached for the coffee pot to refill the trucker in booth 7. That's when I heard it. The screech of tires outside, car doors slamming, voices raised in panic. The bell above the entrance exploded with sound as the door flew open, crashing against the wall hard enough to crack the glass. "Clear the damn place!" a voice barked. My head snapped toward the commotion. 3 men in dark suits poured through the entrance, and between 2 of them, they were dragging a 4th. An older man, silver-haired and broad-shouldered, his white shirt soaked crimson, his face twisted in agony. Blood dripped onto my floor in thick, deliberate drops. The trucker took one look and threw a 20 on the table, practically running for the back exit. The only other customer, a college kid with headphones, grabbed his laptop and bolted. Smart. Everyone in this neighborhood knew when to disappear. Everyone except me. I stood frozen behind the counter, coffee pot still in my hand, watching as they hauled the bleeding man toward the largest booth. The 2 suits lowered him with surprising gentleness, his groan echoing through the suddenly silent diner. "You." The tallest of the 3 pointed at me. He had cold eyes, a crooked nose that had been broken more than once, and a gun bulge visible beneath his jacket. "Lock the door, flip the sign." My body moved before my brain caught up. I set down the coffee pot, walked to the entrance on shaking legs, and did exactly as he commanded. The lock clicked into place with a finality that made my stomach drop. When I turned back, all 3 men were staring at me with varying degrees of suspicion and desperation. "Can you help him?" the one with the broken nose asked, his voice tight. I looked at the older man sprawled in the booth, his breathing shallow and laboured. Even through the pain-etching lines into his weathered face, I could see the ghost of power, of authority. This wasn't some street thug caught in a bad deal. This was someone important, someone dangerous. "That depends," I heard myself say, and the words came out steadier than they had any right to be. "You're going to tell me what kind of mess I'm fixing to get dragged into, or are we going to dance around it while he bleeds out on my vinyl?" The words slipped out in the thick, honeyed drawl of my childhood, the dialect I'd spent years burying beneath neutral city speech, the accent that marked me as backwards, uneducated, disposable. My grandmother's voice. I rolled up in magnolia blossoms and red dirt roads, tumbling from my lips like I'd never left Redemption Creek, Texas. The 3 men went completely still. Broken Nose exchanged a glance with his companion, a younger man with a scar splitting his left eyebrow. The 3rd, standing guard by the window, actually smiled. "Well, I'll be damned," the younger one muttered. "She's got a mouth on her. And a brain if y'all would stop gawking like a bunch of Sunday churchgoers at a saloon girl." I grabbed the first aid kit from under the counter, the one I'd stocked myself after the owner refused to replace the expired supplies, and marched toward the booth. "Now move aside and let me see what we're working with here." They parted like water, and I got my first real look at the injured man. His eyes opened, grey as storm clouds over the plains, or sharp despite the pain clouding them. He studied me with an intensity that made my skin prickle, like he could see straight through the polyester uniform and cheap sneakers to whatever secrets I'd buried beneath. "Who are you?" His voice was rough gravel, each word an effort. Right now, I'm the only thing standing between you and the Grim Reaper, so I suggest you hush up and let me work. I peeled back his ruined shirt, assessing the damage. Entry wound below the ribs, left side. Exit wound in the back. The bullet had passed through clean, lucky if you could call any part of this lucky. This is going to hurt something fierce. I've had worse, he growled. Sure you have, sugar. I pressed sterile gauze against the wound, applying pressure. Everyone's a tough guy till the adrenaline wears off. His jaw tightened, but he didn't flinch. Didn't make a sound beyond the harsh rhythm of his breathing. I worked quickly, efficiently, my hands moving with a confidence that came from somewhere deep and buried, cleaning the wound, packing it with gauze, wrapping his torso with practiced precision. The men watched in silence, their shock giving way to something else. Curiosity, maybe. Or calculation. You've done this before, the broken-nosed man observed, his tone careful. I didn't look up from my work. Grew up on a ranch outside Redemption Creek. Had to patch up more than a few cowboys who got on the wrong side of a bull or a bottle. Human anatomy ain't all that different from a horse once you get past the complaining. A sound that might have been a laugh escaped the injured man's throat. You're either very brave or very stupid, he said, his eyes never leaving my face. Or neither, just practical. I tied off the last of the bandages and stepped back to examine my handiwork. That'll hold for now, but he needs a real doctor, someone who can check for internal bleeding, infection. I did what I could, but no hospitals. The order came from a new voice, deep and absolute. I turned toward the entrance, though I hadn't heard the door unlock or open. A fourth man stood in the doorway, and the temperature in the diner seemed to drop 10 degrees. He was younger than the others, mid-30s maybe, but he carried himself with the kind of authority that made age irrelevant. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a black suit that probably cost more than I made in 6 months. Dark hair swept back from a face that belonged on a Roman coin, all sharp angles and brutal beauty. And his eyes. God, his eyes. A blue as a desert sky and twice as merciless. Everyone in the room straightened unconsciously. Even the injured man tried to sit up before groaning and settling back. Maverick? The older man's voice was rough with pain and something else. Relief, maybe, or regret. The newcomer Maverick crossed the distance to the booth in 3 long strides, his gaze sweeping over his father's injuries before landing on me with the force of a physical blow. Who is she? Not directed at me, as if I were an object to be catalogued and dismissed. The waitress, Broken Nose supplied. She helped, patched him up, didn't run, didn't call the cops. How fortunate. Maverick's tone suggested it was anything but. He studied me the way a wolf studies prey, deciding whether I'm worth the chase or simply an obstacle to be removed. What's your name? I lifted my chin, meeting his stare with one of my own. My grandmother taught me never to show fear to predators. They can smell it, taste it, use it. Jolene Cassidy. And before you ask, yeah, like the Dolly Parton song. My mama had a sense of humour. Something flickered in those cold blue eyes. Jolene Cassidy. He repeated my name like he was testing it, tasting each syllable. You have an interesting way of speaking. Texas. Born and raised. I crossed my arms, suddenly aware of how vulnerable I was, how easily these men could make me disappear. Is there a problem with my accent, or are we done with the interrogation? Because your daddy there needs fluids, antibiotics, and about 12 hours of rest, none of which I can provide in a diner. The men around me tensed. Nobody spoke to Maverick like that, I realized. Nobody questioned him. Nobody challenged him. But instead of anger, a slow smile curved his mouth. Dangerous. Intrigued. "You don't know who I am," he said. "Should I?" "Most people do." "Well, I ain't most people." I gestured toward his father. "Now, are you going to get him somewhere safe, or are we going to stand here measuring who's got the bigger—" "Careful," Maverick interrupted, but there was dark amusement in his voice now. "Finish that sentence and we might have a problem." "We already have a problem, sugar. Your daddy's bleeding in my diner. There's going to be questions when my boss comes in tomorrow morning, and I'm willing to bet my last dollar that you ain't the type to leave witnesses." I tilted my head, studying him right back. "So let's skip the part where you threaten me and I pretend to be scared. And get straight to what happens next." Silence. Absolute silence. Then the injured man, Maverick's father, laughed. It was a weak, pained sound, but genuine. "I like her." "Of course you do," Maverick muttered. He turned back to me, and something shifted in his expression. A decision made. "How much do you make here?" "Excuse me." "Your salary, tips. How much do you clear a month?" I blinked, thrown by the sudden shift. "I don't see how that's—" "Answer the question, Jolene." Hearing my name in his mouth did something strange to my pulse. "Maybe $2,000 on a good month. Why?" "Because you're going to quit." My laugh came out sharp and bitter. "The hell I am! I need this job." "Needed," he corrected. "Past tense. You're going to quit this job, pack your things from whatever rat hole apartment you're living in, and come work for me." The world tilted sideways. "You've lost your damn mind. My father's life is worth considerably more than $2,000 a month, Miss Cassidy. You saved him tonight. That means you're now in my debt." "Your debt?" "I helped him." "Exactly. And now you know our faces. You know we're vulnerable. You know where we were at a specific time on a specific night." He took a step closer and I forced myself not to retreat. "That makes you either an asset or a liability. I prefer assets." "I don't know nothing," I shot back, my accent thickening with anger and fear. "I didn't ask for this. I was just doing my job." "And now you have a new job." He pulled out his phone, typed something, and showed me the screen. A bank transfer notification, $50,000. Down payment, or considerate incentive to make the right choice. I stared at the numbers, my brain unable to process them. $50,000. I could pay off my student loans, get a new place, start over. But at what cost? What exactly would this job entail? I asked slowly. "My father requires care while he recovers. Someone discreet, someone competent, someone with your particular set of skills." Maverick's smile didn't reach his eyes. "And someone I can keep an eye on." There it was, the truth beneath the pretty offer. I wasn't being hired. I was being taken, kept, controlled. And if I refuse? He leaned in, close enough that I could smell his cologne, cedar and smoke and something darker. "Then I'd have to question whether leaving you alive is worth the risk. And I really don't want to do that, Jolene. Oh, you're far too interesting to waste." My heart hammered against my ribs, but I kept my face blank. I'd grown up in a town where men used intimidation like currency, where violence simmered just beneath every handshake. I knew when I was beaten, but I also knew how to survive. "Fine," I said, meeting his gaze. "But I want 100,000 and a contract, in writing." Broken Nose actually choked. Maverick's expression didn't change, but something gleamed in those blue eyes. Respect, maybe, or the satisfaction of a predator who'd found worthy prey. "Done." He extended his hand. "Welcome to the family, Miss Cassidy." I took his hand, feeling the calluses on his palm, the strength in his grip. This was a man who built his empire with his own hands, who wasn't afraid to get them dirty. "Don't make me regret this," I muttered. Too late, he replied. You saved my father's life. Regret was inevitable the moment you didn't run. 2 hours later, I found myself in the back of a black SUV, my few belongings shoved into a garbage bag at my feet. The diner was locked up, a note left for my manager that simply read, I quit. I'd turned off my phone, knowing the calls and texts would start soon. Maverick sat across from me, his father stretched out on the seat beside him, finally unconscious from the pain medication one of the men had produced. The others followed in a second vehicle, shadows in my rearview mirror. Where are we going? I asked, breaking the silence. Somewhere safe. He didn't elaborate. That's real specific, thanks. A ghost of a smile. You'll see. We drove through the city, leaving behind the neon lights and crumbling buildings of my neighborhood, heading toward the districts where money talked and rules bent. The buildings grew taller, cleaner, shinier. Old wealth mixed with new power. Finally, we pulled into an underground garage beneath a high-rise that looked like it cost more than some countries' GDP, private elevator. Penthouse access. The doors opened directly into an apartment. No, not an apartment, a fortress that sprawled across the entire top floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city lights. Marble floors. Modern furniture that looked uncomfortable but expensive. Art on the walls that I recognized from documentaries about museums. Guest room is down the hall, second door on your right, Maverick said, helping his father out of the SUV with surprising gentleness. You'll stay there tonight. Tomorrow we'll discuss your duties in more detail. And if I decide to leave? He paused, looking back at me. Then I'd advise against it, for your own safety. Is that a threat? No, Jolene, it's a fact. The moment you entered my world, you became a target. Everyone I associate with, everyone I care about, everyone who knows my secrets, they all have enemies. And those enemies would love nothing more than to hurt me through someone vulnerable, someone like you. The weight of his words settled over me like a shroud. I didn't ask for this. No one ever does. He turned away, supporting his father's weight. But here you are anyway. Make the best of it. I watched him disappear down a hallway, leaving me alone in this gilded cage. Through the windows, the city stretched out below, millions of lights representing millions of lives, all of them free to come and go as they pleased. And here I was, trapped by my own compassion. I thought about running, about calling the police, about exposing whatever criminal empire Maverick commanded. But deep down, I knew the truth. I'd seen too much, knew too much. And somewhere between patching up a dying man and accepting a devil's deal, I'd crossed a line I could never uncross. I was part of this now, whether I wanted to be or not. The first week passed in a strange blur of normalcy and tension. I tended to Sterling, Maverick's father, as I learned his name, changing his bandages, monitoring for infection, forcing him to eat and take his medication despite his stubborn protests. He reminded me of my grandfather, all gruff exterior and hidden warmth. By day 3, he was telling me stories about his youth, about building his empire from nothing, about the choices that led him here. He never called it a criminal organization. He talked about business and territory and negotiations, but I could read between the lines. The Steele family controlled half the city's underground. Gambling, protection, money laundering. They were the monsters parents warned their children about. And I was living in their den, tending to their wounds, becoming complicit in their world. Maverick appeared and disappeared like a ghost, sometimes gone for days, returning with blood on his knuckles or a darkness in his eyes that made me look away. He never explained where he'd been or what he'd done. Never asked if I was comfortable or if I needed anything. But he watched me. Always watching. I'd catch him standing in the doorway while I read to his father, his expression unreadable, or I'd turn around in the kitchen to find him leaning against the counter, studying me like I was a puzzle he couldn't quite solve. "You're staring," I said one night, not looking up from the medical journal I'd been reading, trying to make sure I didn't miss anything in Sterling's care. "You're reading about gunshot wound recovery," he observed, moving into the room. "Figured I should know what I'm doing. Your daddy's tough, but he ain't invincible." "No one is." He poured himself a drink, whiskey, neat, and sat across from me, the first time he'd voluntarily sought my company. "Why didn't you become a nurse? Or a doctor?" I closed the journal, meeting his gaze. Money. Time. Life. I shrugged. Had to drop out of college when my mama got sick. Worked 3 jobs to pay her medical bills. She died anyway. After that, I just survived. Nursing school seemed like a dream someone else got to have. Something shifted in his expression. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. We all got our scars." I tilted my head. "What's yours?" "Excuse me?" "Your scar. The thing that made you into this." I gestured vaguely at him. The expensive suit, the cold eyes, the aura of controlled violence. Nobody starts out wanting to be the boogeyman. A long silence stretched between us. I thought he wouldn't answer. Thought I'd pushed too far. Then, my mother. I waited. She was killed when I was 16, caught in the crossfire of a territorial dispute. His fingers tightened around his glass. She wasn't part of this life, didn't want anything to do with it. But they killed her anyway. Because she was married to my father. Because she was a weakness they could exploit. "I'm sorry," I echoed his earlier words, and I meant them. After that, I made a choice. I could be weak, be a target, live in fear, or I could become something they feared. He drained his whiskey. "I became the monster they created." "You ain't a monster." He laughed, bitter and sharp. "You don't know me, Jolene. I know you brought your daddy here instead of letting him die. I know you pay your men enough that they're loyal, not terrified. I know you haven't hurt me, even though I'm a liability." I leaned forward. "Monsters don't do those things." "Don't romanticize what I am," he said quietly, dangerously. "I've killed men. I've destroyed lives. I've done things that would make you run screaming if you knew half the truth." "Probably," I agreed. "But right now, in this moment, you're just a man sitting across from me, drinking whiskey and pretending he doesn't have a heart. And I've met plenty of men like that Maverick Steele. Most of them are more afraid than anyone around them." He stood abruptly, the movement sharp enough to make me flinch. For a moment I thought I'd gone too far, thought he might finally show me the monster he claimed to be. Instead, he set his glass down with exaggerated care and walked toward the door. "Get some rest," he said without looking back. "Tomorrow, you'll start learning the real rules of this world. And if you're smart, you'll learn to fear me properly." But his voice lacked conviction, and we both knew it. The break-in happened on day 9. I woke to the sound of shattering glass, my body moving on instinct before my brain fully engaged. I grabbed the baseball bat I'd kept by my bed, a habit from living in bad neighborhoods, and crept toward the hallway. Voices, low and urgent, not Maverick's men. The wrong voices. My heart hammered as I pressed myself against the wall, trying to decide between hiding and warning Sterling. He was still weak, still recovering, defenseless. The decision made itself. I ran toward his room, bat raised, my bare feet silent on the marble floors. His door was open, and inside, 3 men, strangers in ski masks. One held a knife to Sterling's throat, while the others ransacked the room, looking for something. "Where is it?" the one with the knife demanded. "Where's the ledger?" Sterling's face was pale but calm. "Go to hell," The knife pressed deeper, drawing blood. Something primal surged through me. Not courage, terror transformed into action. I swung the bat with everything I had, catching the nearest intruder across the shoulders. He went down with a scream. The others turned, shock giving me a precious second. I swung again, wild and desperate, connecting with someone's arm, someone's ribs. Then hands grabbed me, slamming me against the wall hard enough to knock the wind from my lungs. The bat clattered to the floor. A fist drove into my stomach and I doubled over, gasping. "Should have stayed in bed, Princess," a voice growled near my ear. Through the haze of pain, I saw Sterling struggling against his captor, saw the knife slash sideways. Then the door exploded inward and Maverick was there. What happened next took maybe 15 seconds, but it felt like watching a dance choreographed by death itself. Maverick moved like violence given form. Were every movement precise and brutal, the man holding me dropped, unconscious before he hit the floor. The one with the knife turned, lunging. Maverick caught his wrist, twisted, and the crack of breaking bone echoed through the room. The knife clattered away. A punch to the throat. A knee to the gut. The intruder crumpled. The third tried to run. Made it maybe 3 steps before Maverick caught him, slamming him face first into the wall with enough force to leave a dent in the plaster. Then silence. Heavy breathing. The coppery smell of blood. Maverick turned to me, his eyes wild, his hands still curled into fists. "Are you hurt?" I shook my head, though my ribs screamed in protest. "Sterling!" "I'm fine," the older man rasped, pressing a hand to the shallow cut on his throat. "Thanks to your girl here." "She bought me time. She's not—" Maverick stopped himself, his jaw tight. "She's not trained for this. She could have been killed. But she wasn't." Sterling's eyes found mine, something like pride flickering there. She fought, for me, when she could have hidden. I didn't know what to say to that. Didn't know how to explain the instinct that had driven me forward instead of away. So I said nothing, just slid down the wall until I was sitting on the floor, my legs too shaky to hold me. Maverick's men flooded in then, securing the intruders, checking the perimeter. The chaos swirled around me while I sat there, trying to remember how to breathe normally. Then Maverick was kneeling in front of me, his hands, still bloody, cupping my face with surprising gentleness. "Look at me," he commanded, and I did. Are you hurt?" "Just bruised." My voice sounded distant, shocked. "I'm okay." "You're in shock." He lifted me easily, carrying me out of the room despite my weak protests. "We're getting you checked out." I said I'm fine, and I don't believe you. He set me down on the couch in the main living area, his hands checking for injuries with the efficiency of someone who'd done this before. His fingers ghosted over my ribs, and I winced. "Possible fracture. We'll need x-rays." "No hospitals," I said, echoing his earlier words. "That's the rule, right? No hospitals." Something flickered across his face. "That rule doesn't apply to you." "Why? Because I'm different? Because I don't matter to your empire?" I pushed his hands away, anger cutting through the shock. "I'm in this now, Maverick, all the way in, apparently. So stop treating me like I'm made of glass. You could have died tonight, but I didn't. You could have." He stopped, his control fracturing for just a moment. "Why didn't you hide? Why didn't you lock your door and wait for help?" "Because your daddy was in danger. Because it was the right thing to do." I met his stare, refusing to look away. "And because maybe, just maybe, I'm tired of surviving and ready to start living. Even if that means living dangerously." The silence stretched between us, charged with something I didn't want to name. His hands still rested on my ribs, his touch burning through the thin fabric of my nightshirt. "You're insane," he said finally. "Probably." I didn't smile. "But I'm your insane now, so you better get used to it." His thumb traced a small circle against my side and I stopped breathing. "Huh, Jolene. Whatever he was about to say died as Sterling appeared in the doorway, supported by 2 guards. The Reyes family sent them, looking for the ledger that proves their money laundering operation. He grimaced. They'll send more. Maverick stood the moment broken, his mask sliding back into place. Then we move locations. Safe house in the mountains. We leave within the hour. What about the girl? One of the guards asked. She comes with us. Maverick didn't look at me. She's not safe here anymore. None of us are. The safe house was a sprawling ranch nestled in mountains 3 hours north of the city. Log construction, modern security, completely off the grid. It reminded me achingly of home, of Texas hills and endless horizons. This is where you grew up, I said, not asking. Maverick nodded, on staring out at the landscape. My mother loved it here. After she died, my father couldn't stand to visit. Too many ghosts. We'd been here 2 weeks. 2 weeks of Sterling's continued recovery, of my ribs slowly healing, of learning the rhythms of this strange new life. 2 weeks of Maverick teaching me how to shoot, how to spot threats, how to survive in his world. And 2 weeks of something building between us, something neither of us acknowledged, but both of us felt. I need to go back to the city tomorrow, he said. Business that can't wait. You'll stay here with my father and the guards. Okay. I'd learned not to argue about his business, learned not to ask about the blood he sometimes came home wearing like a second skin. Jolene. He turned to face me, and the afternoon sun caught his features, softening the hard edges. When this is over, when the Reyes family is dealt with, when my father is fully healed, you can leave. I'll set you up somewhere safe. New identity, new life. You'll never have to see any of this again. I should have been relieved, should have jumped at the chance for freedom. Instead, my chest tightened with something that felt suspiciously like loss. And if I don't want to leave? His expression remained carefully neutral. Why would you stay? Maybe I've gotten used to it. The danger, the adrenaline. I stepped closer, close enough to see the flecks of grey in his blue eyes. Or maybe I've gotten used to you. That's the Stockholm Syndrome talking. Is it? Or maybe it's just me finally admitting that I'm tired of being alone. Tired of hiding who I am. Tired of pretending I don't feel... I stopped myself. Oh, the word's too dangerous to speak. Feel what? His voice dropped, rough and low. You know what? Say it. Why? So you can tell me how stupid I am? How you're a monster and I should be terrified. I lifted my chin, defiant. I see you, Maverick. I see the man beneath all the armor and violence. I see how you are with your father, with your men who are loyal because you earn it, not demand it. I see. He kissed me. Hard and desperate and inevitable, his hands tangling in my hair, his body pressing mine against the railing. I gasped against his mouth, and he took the opportunity to deepen the kiss, claiming me with a thoroughness that left no room for doubt. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against mine. This is a mistake, he whispered. Probably, I agreed. You deserve better than this, better than me. Don't I get to decide what I deserve? His hands framed my face, his thumbs brushing my cheekbones. I can't protect you from everything, Jolene. Can't keep you safe from my enemies, from my choices. Eventually they'll come for you. Use you against me. Then teach me to protect myself. I covered his hands with mine. Stop treating me like I'm fragile. I grew up surviving monsters, Maverick. I can survive your world too. You shouldn't have to. But I want to. The truth of it settled in my bones. I want to stay. With you. In whatever this is, we're building. He kissed me again, softer this time, like I was something precious he couldn't quite believe he got to hold. You're going to ruin me. Good, I murmured against his lips. About time someone did. Maverick left for the city at dawn, and I spent the morning with Sterling, changing his bandages and listening to his stories about Maverick as a boy. He was softer then, Sterling said, a sad smile on his weathered face. Before his mother died, before he had to become what he is now. He's still soft, I replied, just hidden better. You see it because you're like her, like my Clara. His eyes grew distant. She had that same steel wrapped in sweetness, that same refusal to be intimidated. He loved her more than anything in this world. What happened to the men who killed her? I asked quietly. Maverick hunted them down, every last one. Sterling's expression hardened. It took him 2 years, but he found them all, made examples of them. That's when the underworld learned to fear the Steele name. A chill ran through me. Does he ever regret it? And the violence? Every day, but he'd do it again in a heartbeat. Sterling reached out, patting my hand. That's what you need to understand about my son, Jolene. He doesn't do anything halfway. When he loves absolutely. When he protects, he'll burn the world down to keep his people safe. And when he makes an enemy, he trailed off meaningfully. I'm not afraid of him. I know. That's why you're perfect for him. Sterling smiled. He needs someone who sees the man, not the monster. Someone who'll stand beside him, not behind him. The sound of vehicles approaching cut off whatever I might have said in response. Too many vehicles, moving too fast. Sterling's expression changed instantly, all warmth draining away. Get the guards. Now. I ran for the security room, my heart racing. The cameras showed 6 SUVs, armed men pouring out. The Reyes family had found us. Lock down the house, the head of security barked into his radio. Get Sterling to the panic room. You, he pointed at me. Go with him. No, the word came out harder than I intended. I'm not hiding while you all fight. You don't have training. Then give me a gun and tell me where to point it. I grabbed a pistol from the weapons locker, the weight familiar after weeks of Maverick's lessons. I'm done being protected. I'm protecting what's mine now. Sterling laughed, even as the guards tried to hustle him towards safety. Just like Clara, Maverick's going to kill me for letting you fight. Maverick can try. I checked the clip, chambered around. But first, we gotta survive this. The attack came hard and fast. Bullets shattered windows, splintered wood, a ricochet off reinforced walls. I fired back with hands steadier than they should have been, my anger burning through the fear. These men wanted to hurt my people because, yes, I'd claimed them as mine, claimed this strange family I'd stumbled into. I clipped one attacker in the shoulder, drove another back with suppressing fire, covered the guards as they moved Sterling to safety. Then something exploded, a grenade through a window, and the world turned to fire and noise and chaos. I found myself on the floor, ears ringing, dust choking my lungs. Through the smoke, I saw a figure advancing. Saw the gun aimed at Sterling's retreating form. My body moved without thought. I threw myself sideways, finger squeezing the trigger, and the attacker went down. But not before his shot went wide, catching me high on the left arm instead of Sterling's back. Pain exploded through me, white-hot and consuming. I collapsed, vision swimming, distantly aware of the guards returning fire, of the attackers retreating, of someone screaming my name. Then darkness swallowed everything. I woke to the smell of antiseptic and the sound of harsh breathing. No, not breathing, sobbing. My eyes fluttered open to find Maverick sitting beside my bed, his face buried in his hands, his shoulders shaking. I'd never seen him cry, never imagined he could. Maverick? My voice came out rough, barely a whisper. His head snapped up, and the devastation in his eyes nearly broke me. You're awake. Thank God you're awake. What happened? You got shot protecting my father. Again. His hands clenched into fists. You almost died, Jolene. Almost bled out before the medics stabilized you. I came back and found you unconscious, covered in blood, and His voice cracked. I thought I'd lost you. I reached for him with my good arm, and he grabbed my hand like a lifeline. I'm okay. I'm here. You shouldn't have fought, shouldn't have put yourself in danger. Would you have hidden? I challenged. If our positions were reversed, would you have let me fight alone? He didn't answer because we both knew the truth. Exactly. I squeezed his hand. I told you I'm done surviving, done being passive. This is my life now, my family, my choice, and I choose to fight for it. Even if it kills you. Even then. I pulled him closer until his forehead rested against mine, because some things are worth dying for, Maverick. And you, this life we're building, it's worth everything. He kissed me then, desperate and tender and claiming all at once. I love you, he breathed against my lips. God help me, I love you, Jolene Cassidy, you terrifying, stubborn, impossible woman. I love you too. The words felt right, true. My monster, my protector, my heart. We're insane, he muttered, but he was smiling through his tears. Probably, I agreed, but at least we're insane together. 3 months later, I stood in the same diner where this had all started, now wearing a designer dress instead of a grease-stained uniform. Maverick stood beside me, his hand resting possessively on my lower back. The Reyes family had been dealt with, their leaders arrested on the evidence from the infamous ledger, their organization dismantled. Sterling had recovered fully and retired, leaving the empire to Maverick with his blessing. And I had learned to navigate this dangerous world with the same skill I'd once used to survive poverty. Ready to go? Maverick asked, his voice soft. I looked around the diner one last time, remembering the girl I'd been. Scared. Alone. Barely surviving. That girl was gone. In her place stood a woman who'd found her strength in the darkest of places, who'd claimed her future with bloody hands and an open heart. Yeah, I said, turning to him with a smile. Let's go home. He kissed me in the middle of the parking lot, uncaring of who might see, and I kissed him back, tasting freedom and love and the promise of all our dangerous tomorrows. We climbed into the car, leaving behind the ghosts of who we'd been, and driving toward the life we'd chosen together. A life built on darkness and danger and a love fierce enough to survive both. And as the city lights blurred past, I thought about how sometimes salvation comes not from escaping the monsters, but from learning to love one who loves you back with equal ferocity. Sometimes you save the monster, and sometimes the monster saves you right back.